aliens, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system.
All right, we live. There we go.
Floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country.
You know, I had to cover this, y'all. I covered the election, so you know I have to get in here and cover this too. Sorry, I'm a little late.
With addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do
I got
is
Miss C on with me.
migrants.
I got Miss C on.
Of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks.
Let's see
and then
if
I think you make it
I didn't get a
for illegal
notification.
aliens to undercut the wages of American.
Did you get a notification?
A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn.
I think it's a little delay.
A good day's work.
I think it's a little delay with the notification.
Separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations?
Well, you know, I'm just going to have a little commentary, but
in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children.
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history, 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state, a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him, he's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable.
Yo, I don't have a dog in the fight in this one.
Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up.
No,
Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules. And it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3
Oh, he
years,
said the
Kamala
smell
Harris
test.
went out bragging
Are you
that she
smelling
was
my
going to undo
finger?
Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true. Don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute.
I don't think this is going to be a dogfight.
Ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress
I don't think there's
going to
be an aggressive moment in this
funding.
Yeah,
so you have said repeatedly that
Donald
Trump
for good entertainment
through
purposes,
executive
like
action,
them shooting shots at each other.
Do you disagree?
I just
that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empower law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our border czar Kamala Harris has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the border
that's what I'm saying. Like,
they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico. You've got to go back through proper channels. Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You've got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. Look, I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about
then he quote the Bible. Did he go there?
I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it, and it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants, who have legal status.
Oh, he about to bring in
temporary
the
protected
Haitian.
status.
Well,
Nora?
Margaret, but
Thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important.
Uh-oh. Here we go with the
Turn out
bad
the
moderator.
economy. Thank
Margaret, the rules were that
The
you guys weren't
economy-
going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
There we go.
So there's an application called the
Stick your
CBP
chest out,
one,
man. Say it with
where
your
you can
chest,
go
damn
on
it.
as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
Right away.
Senator, for
leadership.
describing
go
the
with the
legal
bad
process.
moderator.
We have
Kamala
so much
Harris
to get
opened up
to,
that
Senator.
pathway.
Those
We have
laws
so
have been
much-
on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Dogfight.
The
We
CBP
wanna
one
have-
No, I
has
guess the
not been on the
dogfight is going to
books.
be between them and the moderators.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to.
Oh, they
Thank
cut
you
the
for
mics?
explaining the legal process.
Wow.
Nora?
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan, so let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President
Hey,
Harris
Carol,
unveiled a
you
plan
there?
that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit.
Did I lose
The
you,
Wharton
Carol?
School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit
All
by
right, baby. Got you, got
$1.2
you.
trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class
Right.
because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of
But
you
it
out
seems
there
like the
listening to what we
dogfight is
tonight,
going
you're
to be
hearing a
them
lot of
versus
stuff
the
back and forth, and
moderators.
it's good. It's
instead of
healthy.
them
That's what this
versus
is
each
supposed to
other.
happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that
And you
Kamala
said
Harris put
you could see the
out there
live?
is one
Can you
is
see the
talking
live?
about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses
Okay.
proposed under this plan with down payment assistance
I just want to
on the
see
front
like
end to
how
get you a
how's
house.
it
A
coming up
house
on
is
your end.
much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where
I
you're at.
appreciate that,
And then
dear.
making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before
Oh, what happened?
this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota, 12% more houses in Minneapolis. Prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm gonna give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it, it would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best, more people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do, and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it, because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%, open the American southern border, and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom. Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one, whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year, and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years, and the last year as president? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more.
Are you noticing this?
If you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans.
They're giving him every opportunity to respond, just like last time.
That we believe in. I think the thing
they
that
won't let one respond to the other, but
concerns
they
me
give
on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into
they're asking him to respond to everything that JD is saying.
The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it.
But when
Kamala Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
So they're giving him every opportunity.
So appreciate
to
that.
respond.
So if you notice what Governor Walz
But
just did is he said,
kinda
first of all,
one-sided.
Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
No, that's a
show
gross
that he
generalization.
did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on healthcare then.
Senator, Governor,
Please.
thank you. Margaret?
We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics. But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year.
Uh-oh.
Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams,
Did you go there or
baseball
not?
teams, we would take
This is the
dancers,
question.
and we would go
Were
back
you
and
there?
forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell
Were
you,
you
I
there?
have poured my heart into my
Answer the
community.
no.
I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years.
Okay,
And in
am I
Congress,
missing it that
I was
he
one of the most
didn't answer the
bipartisan
question?
people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the
Going
people,
for the answer.
to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything. Many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
So he wasn't there.
So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
So you wasn't at Tiananmen.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've said, you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out the messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says, you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Thank you. Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree. with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago.
What happened? Come on.
So that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022, talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not. Though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
Senator?
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
There we go. Get ugly.
Look, I've given
But
this,
how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
Okay. So, Cal. Uh-oh. All right. All right. No problem. What do you think so far? They on the break. What do you think? Any thoughts? Right. Okay. Okay. No, I got you. They're back on, so I'm gonna plug it back in because they're back on from commercial. Hold on 1 second. Oh no, they're delayed.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of three beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors locked better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is just your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the San Diego parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask
Would
all of
expect
you
a
out
little
there,
more,
do you want your schools hardened to look like a
dog
fort?
fight, but
Is that what we have to go when we know
it's
there's countries around the world
not giving us
that
that.
their children aren't practicing these types of drills? They're being kids. We owe it to
And it's
them
what,
to
10
get a
o'clock?
fix.
No,
These are
what is
things
it,
that shouldn't be that
10:30, like
difficult.
11?
You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing
appreciate you
okay.
saying so.
Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said, actually, about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly, weird differences between our own country's
They
gun
are
violence
more
problem
hospitable to each other.
and Finland. Is okay, first of all, we have
We'll give
way
them
higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher
That's
rates of
another
depression,
reason why
way higher rates of
everybody's
anxiety.
expecting
We
a
unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need
friendly
to get to the
politician.
root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have
Well, I
to
didn't
empower
expect
law
it.
enforcement
I
to
really
arrest
didn't
the bad
expect
guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools, we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. Yeah. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues, making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns. And there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit.
Is that
they
even
also
possible?
promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens if you lower energy prices? As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is, think about it. If a truck driver is paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build a house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens. Not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods, too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Where, Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But, Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in.
Well, of course, that's not true. And again, you have the facts. I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's, again, blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask, though, on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this. And I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like, there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, "I have concepts of a plan." Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. It's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill, but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think it's an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much more that we can do. But I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better healthcare policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is you lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low, take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people or whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then what happens? So you think the individual mandate's a good idea? I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret?
Can I address that?
I apologize. We're out of time. We have a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret?
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota, and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some cases, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area, and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare, because look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks, and one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance, many things about the American family. The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on child care as they do on housing each month.
There we go.
So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families, because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that plays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarships types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $1,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy is growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
That would have been good.
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator. But
me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he did. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. So,
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim,
we can clip
first
that
of all,
after November.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We're going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. This is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we have not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate continues.
Carol, can you hear me? What are your thoughts? Where are you at with this so far?
Are we there?
They're on a break.
No, I thought we had gone into it this summer.
No, yeah, they're on a break. So, I was just honestly, I think they're deadlocked. I mean, huh?
I heard you say, what are your thoughts? And then I thought it went dead. But go ahead, read it off.
I was saying I think they're deadlocked. I mean, I think they're pretty much tied up. I don't edge one over the other as far as this goes. I like him more than I liked him before hearing him, I don't have nothing against Tim Walz. Huh?
You're speaking, when you say like him more than before, are you speaking of Walz or them?
Walz. I mean, like I told you earlier before, we got into this, I didn't have a dog in the fight with either one of them because I don't know much about either one of them, But after listening to him, I'm pretty much neutral on both of them. I mean, listening to Walz, I would have preferred him running for president. I'll be honest about that. Like, he sounds more presidential. It sounds like he has more of a head on his shoulders from listening to him now. I got to do some research into him, before I stand firm on that. But just listening to him now, he does sound very much more presidential, So yeah, I mean, as far as both of them going back and forth on this debate, I would call it a tie. I would say they're neutral. They're pretty much tied up.
That I would agree on the and I don't have anything to object to, and not adverse to your mentioned 16 more presidential. I have a thought, and that is, are we conditioned to a male sounding presidential versus a female sounding presidential? I mean, this is a new
No,
era.
for me, it's the choice of the female. If it was like a different female, like that Tulsa girl who I like her, you know. So it's not the fact that it's a female over a male for me, you know. It's just the choice in female.
Well, no, and I didn't mean. You're not that. I didn't hear what you said. That simplistic. That it could be male versus female type of thing. I just wonder. I it crossed my mind, and I said we.
Yeah.
Be it male, be it female, whoever we are we traditionally, we have never, just think about it. There has never been a female president of this country.
No.
Of many countries. But it is not the norm.
Right.
It certainly is way beyond the norm.
All right, they're coming back on. All right.
Debate. It is now time for the closing statement. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of the coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything.
I don't like
they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you that that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something. Not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage. And then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that too has gotten harder with Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you and good night.
And they're shaking hands. They're shaking hands. They're talking and they're laughing at each other.
All right, Andrew Kraft back here in the anchor chair. We do thank, obviously, CBS, Vance, and Walz there. You are watching the simulcast here on Live Now from Fox, and we continue and begin our post-debate coverage and analysis. Thanks so much for being with us here. We have a lot to get into. They covered a lot of topics there. And in the meantime, we do have some of these images inside there. They're in the spin room in New York City. So in the meantime, we do want to bring into the conversation right now some of our friends, reporters who have helped us make sense of all of this throughout the entire year here. We're going to do that with our friend there at 24 Site. That's Tom Lobianco. He joins me. Tom, good to see you here. Let's just get this.
They just pulled up a poll and it said, did the VP debate sway your vote, sway your decision on the election? And it was a whopping almost 80% no. Holy shit. Almost 80% no, that this debate did not do anything to sway anybody's decisions on the election. That just tells you, like, the impact of this debate, you know.
The climate was refreshing,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to hear some passion. What is that one word for the where's the dog idea, and the other word is passion. You don't want to hear something passionate in two different sides, in the two different sides debating something, or having a debate on such important issues. Our lives are at stake, perhaps.
Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing, Carol. What I would say with this one, right? The way they dealt with each other, their very cordial nature, their comments towards each other and compliments towards each other. Honestly, this was very presidential, and this is actually the way it's supposed to be done. It's just that over the last 8 to 10 years, we've been used to the messy. You know what I'm saying? We've been used to the messy shit. Like,
Sorry about that. I think I had drifted back a little bit about the women's rights issue when I was saying, but go ahead. Yes, I'm hearing you.
well, I was saying we've been so used to the messy that we're so far removed that we don't realize that this is actually how it's supposed to be. Like, on a presidential level, they're supposed to be cordial with each other. They're supposed to be respectful with each other, even if there's certain points. And this was something that I was going to say to you before the last break that I was actually surprised about. There was a lot of times that both of them agreed with the other, which on the higher level, the presidential level, in the last 2 election cycle, well, 3 now, because Hillary and Trump, Biden and Trump and Kamala, there was never any times where they agreed with each other on anything. Oh, hold on. Yeah, there was never no point in time where they agreed with each other on anything, or even gave each other the respect to say, I agree with this point. I actually agree with this point that, or agree with something that the other one has done. It's all been, everything you've done is bad. Everything I've done is good. Whereas in this one, there was plenty of times that J.D. Vance looked at Tim Walz and said, I actually agree and like what you did with that. And same thing with Walz. He said a couple of times with J.D. Vance, I actually agree with him on this point. So the reason why I said that this was really the way it was supposed to be done is because they had moments where they met in the middle.
Yes.
And we haven't seen that in the last 3 presidential cycles with the highest level, with the presidency level, the presidential level.
No, not at all.
It's just been, you're bad, I'm good, and I'm good and you're bad. And I think we're so far removed from it that when we see it done in such a tasteful manner, it's like, oh wow, this is weird. Like, because it was just so tasteful and respectful on how they dealt with each other.
Right.
Even down to shaking hands at the end, and you see them talking amongst each other, and the wives come out and the wives shake hands, and they're all smiles when they walk off from each other. I really believe that that's the way that it's supposed to be done on the presidential level. Even though I did say I wanted to see some mudslinging and all of that, it's just that because we're so used to the messy that we want to see the messy. Hold on one second. Let me just adjust this. All right, there we go. There we go. I don't know why my forehead is shiny. I do not know. Sorry, y'all. This was spur of the moment. This was a spur of the moment stream to cover this presidential election. And just wanted to say, y'all, hello, everybody. Yes, it's me. I do have a face. I'm here. I got Miss C on the line with me, on the guest commentary tonight. And you're here with us as we're covering the 2024 vice presidential debate and running a little commentary on it. If you're here and you're passing through, thank you. I appreciate you. If you're staying, that's even better. If you're just passing through on the way out the door, just hit the like button. That really helps the channel and keeps us up in that algorithm. I appreciate that. And for all my other people, my fishing stream, game stream, this is a little different. So if y'all tuned in and you see this, I get it. This is definitely a little different than what you see. I will get back to the regular game stream later. But I do think that they were neutral. I do think it was tied. I think they both had good points. They both came off I mean, just being fair and objective in the middle, they both came off of kind of likable guys, you know. It wasn't no, you know, but that's being political at the same time. There was very little shade thrown in this, and even the little things that was shade wasn't that bad compared to what we're used to. And I'm looking on the news now. I'm looking and they're trying to start spinning it where they're clipping out certain things they said to make it look like shade. We watched the whole shit. There was no shade thrown. Wasn't no low blows. Wasn't no dirty tactics. You know. And again, just the way they were so good natured with each other, and at times complimenting each other's track records, was surprising to me. You know, just as surprising as seeing them agree on certain points and compliment each other on the certain things that they have done in their political careers, which was also surprising to me. But Carol, I don't want. I'll let you. If you got anything you want to throw in there, I'll let you throw it in.
No, I agree. I in the beginning, I think Vance. I think Walt remains the same way as he started out. I think Vance has, and he comes off as real. He comes off as himself. In the beginning, he I don't know. The vibe was that it was going to be argumentative, that it was going to be not for the debate, but just when he was chosen as the running mate or selected, however he got to be the running mate. You know, some of his comment statements, I don't know, his demeanor could have been. You read the whole person through their verbiage as well as their demeanor, and I wasn't like. I mean, tonight he could have won. He could win my vote as a sensible, smart, could be, day one take over. Should it be necessary? And so and Walt always did have that vibe to me.
Mm-hmm.
But they both just equalized each other out tonight in terms that this is who we are. And so my point is that Vance has either grown or he's coming to his own. This is who he was, and in the beginning, maybe he might have been copycatting a bit of Donald Trump's way of winning, and has since come into his own, and is following his own script.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Actually, I think that is a very strategic play, and maybe a part of the tactic is because that would gain a lot of voters in support if they looked at J.D. Vance to say, all right, I want to vote for Trump, but he's a maverick, he's a little loose, and that makes me nervous. But if you have J.D. Vance as the guy that comes in and say, hey, listen, I'm the political one, I'm the straight edge one, I'll keep him in line, and keep him presidential. That could sway a lot of people to say, all right, now I'm a little more comfortable voting for Trump because I saw how, grounded J.D. Vance is. So it makes me feel a little more at ease if I go in the direction of voting for Trump. And with Tim Walz, the same thing. That's why I said I would rate them as even, because it's almost like they've been hired to do the same job, because it looks like tonight Walz would make certain people comfortable with Kamala, like, okay, if he's behind her and he's, advising, or he's at least in the room with her, maybe this could keep her level,
Right.
because and this is just me. He came off more presidential. Like, I don't know what it was, but he just came off way more presidential than what I saw in the debate with Kamala and Trump. Just me. I'm like, he should run for president.
I can agree with that on just the terms of the debate, face value of the debate tonight.
Mm-hmm.
In the presidential debate, it was I don't. That's why maybe if there were to be a second one, it would be more one would be able to see or have a little bit deeper opinion about Kamala in terms of her being, presidential. For the long term, her presidential stamina. I'll put it that way, the presidential stamina. So, but that's not happening. So I agree, this debate versus that debate, that this was an equalizer, an equal equalizer for both of them in different ways. And but my point was going to be that in the first debate, she was who she had to be, and keeping her own, integrity. She was who she had to be, or at least thought she had to be. There was no way that she was going to be able to make Donald Trump meet her on any common ground like these two guys were able to meet to do. So there goes the difference in the two debates. You have one you have one and I haven't heard enough about the economy, quite frankly, from anybody.
Yeah, I didn't hear much about that. That was very weak. That was very, very weak on both parts. It was more the blame game on their running mates. Instead of any type of solutions, being given. So yeah, I think that part was very weak. They could have did better there. I still got to go with the fact that when she asked him the question about being in Tiananmen Square, he never answered that question. And she did bring it back to say, hey, everything you said was good about your trip to China and high school and all that. But the question was, you said you were in Tiananmen Square. Were you there? And he said, well, I mean, I was in China. He said, I was in China.
It was a clear yes, I was, or no, I wasn't. So what he has done, perhaps.
Oh, that was funny.
Is embellish his trip to China to include something that, it's embellished, like just a stretch of his imagination, a stretch of his like a fisherman tale. You come back and you have the tail of the big fish that you actually didn't catch. Maybe you thought about it.
You know what? Let me say this too. That's why I'm very glad that on the fishing stream, when I told you that striped bass jumped out the water and spit out the line, y'all could see it live. So y'all know it wasn't a fisherman tail. Damn it. I missed that fish. Damn it. I don't want to hear nobody say, yeah, I don't know. Because no, it was live. It was live. And I'm glad it was live, because if it wasn't live, y'all would say it was a fisherman's tail. Damn it. I'm sorry. Let me go. All right, back to Carol. Damn it. I just
No, I saw that segue in the fishing.
yeah, now you made me think about that, because I'm like, okay, somebody might say, yeah, that didn't happen, but it was live. Okay, I missed that
Yeah,
one. That was a big boy, and I missed him. I'm gonna get his ass though, sooner or later, before the season's over. I'm gonna get one of them. But I'm looking at two different news lines right now, and one live news. I just looked at this footage, and it is terrifying. Iran just launched 240 missiles into Israel, and they showing the footage of it, and it looked like the sky is raining fire. I don't know what the hell Israel's going to do. And it looked like where the missiles was launched at looked like a populated city, because it looked like buildings with lights on, like people were in these buildings. And Carol, I don't know if you've seen the footage, but man, it is. Hold on, let me see something.
They're probably going to that afterward. I'm gonna change to another. I'm gonna move to a.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me just see something. While we were talking, in between the breaks, I looked at I saw the footage pop up on my Instagram, and it looks insane. Like, this might be an indicator of of World War III. Like, seriously. I mean, maybe not as much to affect us in the U.S., but hold on one
I believe quite effective. Well, we better for sure have the right people in control of the quote unquote red phone, gold phone, situation room.
I mean, Carol, if you see, I'm gonna see if I could pull it up for a second.
We're closer on the verge to a World War III than we go through our lives thinking about every day. We don't think it's possible. When I say we, I mean as a country as a whole. It just doesn't sound, like, hey, this isn't gonna happen. It can happen. We think we're and I just think that we're much more on the edge of it happening than not.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
not saying it will. That's why we need smart people at the table.
Hold on 1 second. Let me no, go ahead, continue on. I just want to pull up something.
I think it's closer and more possible. It hasn't become probable yet, but more possible than we choose to think about on a daily basis. Or consider.
All right, Carol. Can you see the stream?
I can go to it. I tried to a few minutes ago, and I don't think I was able to get it in.
Yeah, this looks insane. Let me see something. Is this sound to it?
This is a major.
Wow. This looks insane. Holy shit. I could even imagine, like, you're in Manhattan, you're hanging out, you're chilling, and then you look in the sky and see this shit. And they said it was about 240 missiles out of nowhere. No warning, no nothing.
No, it's not letting me bring up the stream.
That's weird. That's weird. Give me 1 second. Let me see something. Let me just double check.
The machine stream, yes, but this one, no.
Hold on, try this. Try this. Did you get that message?
Let's see.
I just texted to you.
It looks like that might be trying to come in there. All right, let me go to my text. Text. Okay, there you are. Let's see. Yeah, that's the same one. Yeah, it popped.
Okay, I'm gonna enlarge it. I just want you to see this.
All right. So, yes. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, look at this.
This is a major attack. Jim Sciutto, this is obviously
a major attack. There's no
what
question.
you are seeing, what we are all seeing with our own eyes is a major attack from Iran.
It's a major attack, Dana, and it's an escalation. It's an escalation of this war.
I just want you to see something. Like, you could see all of these missiles coming in.
What we saw in April when Iran launched dozens of missiles and drones. This attack, according to U.S. intelligence, principally or perhaps entirely ballistic missiles, which are the fastest by far and the most dangerous. And now what we're seeing, in addition to those intercepts, is we're seeing fragments falling to the ground. It's like a deadly fireworks display over Tel Aviv.
And you're talking about Tel Aviv.
Of us here.
And you're talking about Tel Aviv, Jim. We are looking at pictures right now. But we are looking at pictures of Tel Aviv, what you're describing.
Some of them getting through. Yeah, they're getting through. Oh,
shit.
God.
Okay, guys, we got to get off the roof. These are coming down right next to us here.
Please do, Jim. Please do.
And they're broadcasting from the
down. One just about. We got to go inside.
Jim, please take cover.
And these people are just in their apartments chilling. They so used to this shit that they're just in their apartments like, oh, well, missile hit. Like, you know how fast we'd beat out that fucking building?
We are listening and we are watching.
Let me go back for a second.
Attack.
Luckily for Israel, luckily they do have the countermeasures. If you look right now, as these first ones are coming in, you're going to see these fireballs coming out. Hold on, let me mute this.
Yeah, they're intercepted.
But they're shooting so many that even the countermeasures can't stop them all. So they're like, you see how that big one went in? It'll probably go into a cluster explode and, you know, take out 4, but you take out 4 and 6 more get past you. There's no way they can stop all of them. That is insane. And then, you know, what's so crazy is that this was happening while everybody's watching the debate. We're watching the debate, and then this happens. But my thing is, like, how is it that everybody is just still in their apartments, just like watching TV, like it's not raining fire? Like you know, you can't say it's not real because we're looking at it, you know. But I guess it's because we're not used to this, and they are. This is a part of life for people in that area.
Say the same thing. This is everyday life for them.
So maybe it doesn't bother them that missiles just flying out the sky, and I'm just sitting at home watching the football game. But to me, that's wild. I just wanted to show you that real quick. And man.
Yeah, because it's not being aired. I'm not seeing it on any of the channels.
No, because everybody's still doing the debate coverage.
The debate. Mm-hmm.
You know, they're still doing the debate coverage. And the other news channel I'm looking at on the television is they're talking about Diddy, and they said 120 new victims have just stepped forward.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I
Lord.
I heard that come through on the news when I was on the way in.
Yeah. So I don't even know where they're going.
Saying, like, his day in court to appeal being released is not gonna, you know, it's getting more and more past any kind of reality of happening.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going right now. You know, even if he tries to, you know, make another campaign to try to get a bail, I don't see it happening. I mean, another 120 plus.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, there was this other lawyer making the rounds, and she's representing one of the victims, and she was making media rounds all weekend, right? But what she said, and I guess this is why she was making so many media rounds, I guess because what she said in the first media interview is going to make every channel want to speak to her. And she said that there are currently a handful of people shopping around footage that they were able to get their hands on. I don't know if that's people that was around Diddy or in his circle or somebody that was hanging out at the mansion or whatever. But yeah. So she said that somebody reached out to her and made an attempt to sell her the footage, right? So they asked her, like, okay, did you get to see the footage or whatever? And he said, no, he didn't get to see the footage, but they sent him They sent her screenshots of the footage. And she said, it's crystal clear. And she said, you can see the faces. So there's no doubt of if it's this person or if it's Diddy, right? So you can see it.
Yeah.
Crystal clear. But what caught my attention was the fact that she said who the person who Diddy is in this video with, in these sexual encounters, male on male sexual encounter, is somebody who is of a higher status than Diddy. So I'm like, well, what? And she, you know, they definitely asked her, "Do you know who it is?" She said, "Yeah." Can you disclose? She said, "No." But
She said, but he will be named.
if it's somebody that is of a higher status, more powerful than Diddy at the time, I don't know if that's going to get out. Even if that attorney says, you know, yeah, we gonna put it, I think that's just putting pressure for her client to make sure her client gets a bag. But because a lot of people saying it might be Clive. I don't think that attorney has the power behind her to put that out. I just can't see it. You know, I really can't see it. Like, I think she's gonna get a phone call, you know, and that call is gonna be even
No doubt.
yeah,
No
and that's
doubt.
gonna be even more powerful people.
That was just her statement.
Yeah. I'm probably sure she's regretting she said it, but I mean, at the moment, you know, wanting to just get the publicity because, like I said, they had her from that first interview. I've seen her popping up everywhere, all weekend. But I'm pretty sure she's regretting it now, you know, because pretty sure she got the phone calls, and in them phone calls, I'm pretty sure it was, you better not release it, and also, we want who's the person trying to sell it to you, because she said in one of the interviews she said she knows who the person is that's trying to sell it to her, but she can't name the person because it's a well-known person in the music industry and or a performer, maybe like an artist or something. So she can't name the person who tried to sell her the tape. But I'm pretty sure when she gets that phone call that they're going to want to know. They're going to be like, hey, we need to know who it is. And you better not release. I don't care about your threats. You know you're not releasing that footage. Even the screenshots, you know. But this is getting very crazy. So I guess we're done with the the debate. Unless you got more pointers that you wanted to talk about.
No.
Because I mean that's another thing. As much as they did everything the right way, and as far as their decorum, as far as their mannerisms towards each other, they kept it very presidential. They did everything perfectly with how two presidential candidates are supposed to debate each other. You know, yeah, we wanted to see the mess and the mudslinging, but they actually did everything the right way. But with that, it's leaving very little to have to talk about because it was so lackluster. You know what I'm saying? It was like, it's very little to talk about, you know? Even their talking points of certain things that they brought out, it wasn't like there was anything that impactful to say, oh, we got to talk about that after this. Did you hear what Vance said? You know, or did you hear what Wall said? Yeah, we got to talk about that. I mean, on the Wall side, I would say the biggest thing was the Tiananmen Square question, and that wasn't even that much.
I was just about to say the same thing.
That was just funny. You know what I mean? That was just funny watching him trip up and say, you know, all right, you got me. You know, the fact checkers got me. I wasn't there with the tank in Tiananmen Square. I didn't help the little Asian girl. No, I didn't. but I was in China. He was like, I was in China on the other side of China. I was in China that day, but I wasn't there. That was just funny. It was comical. And then on the JD Vance side, I'd say the biggest thing was towards the end with Walsh trying to force him to deny January 6th or deny that that Trump lost. Even though I think that was pointless, I don't know why Walsh was like really like pressing that, because it to me it doesn't do anything, you know. And he's like, "Why we just admit that Trump lost the election?" Well, duh, because Biden's the fucking president. Of course he lost.
Yeah.
The fuck you mean? Like that. That's why I get what he was trying to do, you know, to say, oh, you know, you're with the conspiracy theories that says that the election was rigged and the deniability, all that. Yeah, I get it. But it wasn't strong because it's like, duh, he Lord. I mean, Biden's the president. And that's what he said, too, in a way. He said on January 20th, we brought in a new president. Trump stepped down and Biden stepped up. So, duh, he of course he's the president. He did. Of course he didn't win. You know, but, you know, sometimes they, you know, spin the narrative of like Trump had this big coup where he had the doors locked and forced it, and they had to drag him out of the fucking office. That never happened. It's good visually in your imagination, but in reality, it never happened. But that, to me, maybe that would be the JD Vance moment. Maybe. I mean, unless you saw another moment that I might have missed.
No, you just said it before me. You took the words out of my mouth when we were saying, there wasn't anything, everything, you know, to really, nothing stood out. Everything was just okay on both sides.
Right.
And they did the gentleman thing. They did the correct way. They gave each other, met each other halfway with their points. And but you took the words out of my mouth. That's as I was just about to say. Well, other than the trip to China.
Oh. I thought they was gonna hug each other.
Yeah, we would have been surprised.
No, because
wonder how former President Trump felt about it.
you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably sure he's gonna say some crazy shit tomorrow.
Whatever saves his life, whatever saves his, you know. I think that he has just kind of given into. He's not going to stop being who. He's not going to stop being himself. He's not going to stop. When he wants to do something, say something, he's going to be determined to do it. But you know, he sat back and let this come forward. Let this happen.
See, here go my cousin with his bullshit. Now, see, we kept it fair by what he said. I honestly cannot watch JD Vance talk and lie a minute long on TV, and the mascara is killing me, man. That's just hate. But I love my cousin, cause you know, me and you supposed to have a debate anyway. But once your boy showed his dimension, dropped out, ain't nobody for you to argue for. I mean, I know you're gonna go with Queen Kamala, but I wish we would have done the debate that we were supposed to do, or not the debate. Let me not say it. The discussion we were supposed to do prior to Biden stepping down. So then when Biden stepped down, I could tear your ass up. I could tear your fucking ass up. And I want this to be on camera so you can see this and see me saying this. I would have ate your ass up because everything I said leading up to Biden stepping down, that I said that you debated me on, and just did not want. And nah, he's fine. Everything's fine. He's fine. Ain't nothing wrong with him. He's just fine. He's better than he ever been. And then that motherfucker stepped down. Ooh, I would have tore your ass up. So luckily you didn't have that discussion with me, because everything I said to you leading up to that, you see, I was right. I'll just say that to you, cuz just in case you watching or you watch this later on. I was right, nigga. Cuz boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. The way he was fighting that shit, boy. Let me see something. Hold on one second. And see, this is what I'm talking about, Carl. People with common sense. This is where he was raised. Yeah, yeah, these niggas is dumb as fuck. These niggas is dumb as fuck. Hold on one second. Let me respond to some dumbasses. I'm sorry. Hold on. That's funny. These niggas is dumb as shit, boy. I swear to God. Uh, yeah, Kyle, you there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, just wanted to. I'm sorry. You know me. I'm checking dumb niggas. I'm sorry, because I swear to God, some of these motherfuckers think that they could just go in and say whatever the fuck they want to say. And please, I'm with the shits. That's funny. Yeah, these certain motherfuckers from this. You need, yeah, Carol. You guys, we might have to get you to start doing courses on teaching some of these motherfuckers like how to get hip to what's going on now. Like, because I swear to God, some of these people that represent the old guard need to just sit down. You know, they need to sit the fuck down.
Yes, yes, I am.
They're the ones that's holding shit back. They need to sit the fuck down because they're so
Well,
limited.
this is the delay I'm hearing.
Huh?
I'm hearing you, but I'm hearing the delay in the background and stuff.
Oh, sorry.
No, it doesn't bother me. I can do both. The delay is we already spoken, so I'm in the current with you.
Okay.
You're responding to comments.
Yeah, somewhere else in a totally different group. Yeah, now I'm looking on Facebook and people are talking about asking the question who they think who's winning, and you know, but see, that's the problem I have with a lot of these fuckers. You know, you know, I just it's I don't think people could be like how we kept it fair and unbiased, and we were able to, you know, call it straight down the middle, you know, on both sides. Hold on, what was that? Did I just see a comment? What was that? Oh shit, Chaos. What's up, man? My bad, Chaos. I had to pull up the okay, you say you just got off. Yeah, yeah. I was doing we were doing live coverage of the debate. The vice president debate. You know, because I did a full coverage of the presidential debate. You know, so you know, I figured it's only right that I cover the vice presidential debate, and yeah, that was it. You know, I was in the middle of a game stream when I realized that the debate was on. Then I just went ahead and set up the equipment and got my ass on to fucking do this coverage. You know, I'd like to get in on the important stuff, and we cover the important stuff. You know, but yeah, Carol, what I was saying is like, see, people are commenting and saying these different things, but they're coming from a space where if you already know that you're going to be biased to one side, then it doesn't make any sense to even ask like, hey, who you think win? Regardless of what, you going to go with one side, so you might as well not have an opinion on it. You know, like what my cousin said, like I can't even listen to JD now. Whatever lies and shit he's talking about that he couldn't listen to anymore because he must have been lying so much. We watched the same shit, Carol. You know what I'm saying? We didn't hear none of that shit. we called it fair down the middle, you know. Even with the way they had their decorum and how, you know, respectful they were to each other, you know, and polite to each other, and even to the point of complimenting each other. And this is what I mean with people and their fucking biases, like love them to death, like my cousin. The shit you saw that you're commenting on, even Tim Walz didn't see that shit, and he was debating the man. Because think about it, there were certain things that JD might have misspoke on or said something a certain way on that Tim Walz said, "Oh no, we need to fact check, that might not be true." But it wasn't everything. And it was times that Tim Walz said that, you know, I misspoke on a couple of things. That was very stand-up of him, you know. And it was, matter of fact, if you look towards the end, I could go back and pull it back up. Towards the end, even JD Vance said there were certain things that I said that I know I misspoke on, that I went back and looked at and had to come back and correct myself on. So what type of eyes is my cousin using when he's like, everything he said was a lie? And the only reason why I say that, because I know what set of eyes he's coming from. He's looking at JD the way he looks at Trump. So no matter what, you already have this bias that anybody aligned with him is going to be the same thing. You get what I'm saying? You can't even call it fair to say, all right, this guy's the vice president. Maybe he's got it. He's different. Excuse me. You know, but that goes back to people are so locked in their biases on both sides that they can't have a fair and clear understanding of neither, which is, to me, would always cloud your judgment. Like you know, does that make sense? Am I
Making sense. Yeah.
I don't want to veer off too much. And I mean, like we were saying earlier before I went, I don't even know why I went to Fuckbook and looked on there and read the shit with the dumb people. We were already damn near off this because we both agree that it was pretty lackluster. It wasn't much talking points that they even gave us to talk about. Like even this thing I have playing in the background with the post coverage. I'm surprised that they have this much to fucking talk about, because it wasn't this much going on. Hold on, what is this?
With national security analyst Hal Kempfer in a moment here. While we tee Hal up, I want to play out a clip of the very first question that was asked at the debate. It had to do with the Middle East. Let's watch.
October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners.
This is part we missed.
Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, to Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today is, we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Okay, I'm Austin Westfall. I'm in the desk now. We are joined by national security analyst and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer. First off, before we get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, that was interesting. That part we missed because, remember, we jumped in late, so it was already going on. So that was from the earlier part. Again, man, it's Israel. The fuck, what are we supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm listening to both of their points. They pretty much, to me, they pretty much said the same thing. You know?
You know, this is a recording, and we're not going to hear anything different than what we heard. That was the biggest standout differences as to do the you know. I just go back to the point that I'm not hearing enough about the economy. I'm not knowing who is trading on. I'm just not hearing enough about the economy.
Yeah, I mean, it was no real talking points about the economy. It was no real talking points about getting everything back on track. See Daisy, hold on, let me remove that because that just got pulled. Unless it ended. Yeah, that just got pulled. Yeah, there was no real talk about any of that. You know, it didn't do anything. Oh, Corey Holcomb is on? Damn. Oh, yeah. I got to get on my Corey Holcomb. Corey Holcomb is on right now. The 5150 show is on. Shit. Damn, what time is it? Oh, shit. All right, my good people. This has been Carter Hates Everything's coverage of the 2024 vice presidential debate. My end on it is it was a little lackluster. I think me and Carol agrees. A little lackluster. I do respect the fact that they were so cordial with each other, and I do think that they were very presidential, and in a presidential debate, they did show pretty much a masterclass on how it's done. Like, that's what we're supposed to see from the elite level of the people who are going to be representing the free world, the most powerful nation on planet Earth. And the fact that there were so many times that they met in the middle, which is supposed to be bipartisanship, you know, meeting in the middle. There was so many times that they met in the middle, you know, not even meeting to say we agree to disagree, but meeting to say we could find a solution, you know, even if we disagree with each other, by meeting in the middle and discussing it. I really respected that shit from both of them. And that's why I said that's something we haven't seen in the last four major presidential debates. We didn't see it with Kamala and Trump. We didn't see it with Biden and Trump. We didn't see it with Biden and Trump again. We didn't see it with Hillary and Trump. You know, Who did Obama debate? Was that Mitt Romney? Was it Mitt Romney?
I believe so. He was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
A stage full of candidates. I mean, by the second debate, a lot of them had dropped out.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Well, there were several candidates in the first debate.
But who did he run against on the Republican side? Who did he run against in 2004?
Pulling it up.
Why the fuck can't I remember who? Damn, it don't seem like it was that long.
He ran against Hillary Clinton.
The first one was Hillary, right?
Yeah, he ran against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, but then
and then
yeah,
on
it was
the
him.
Republican side was let me pull that up. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, that we can't.
That's an interesting question. Let me see.
Was it? It was John McCain?
No, I don't.
No.
But
John McCain had Sarah Palin
one
as his
of the
running mate.
candidates.
Yeah, well, I think it was. The primaries, the New Hampshire primaries, the 2008 general election, presidential election. It was candidates. Yeah. It was 2008 was John McCain. John McCain and his running mate was Sarah Palin.
There we go.
And then the 2012 was Mitt Romney. 2012 was Mitt Romney. And his running mate was Paul Ryan.
Oh yeah. I remember that one.
Okay. But you know, it's so crazy because the biggest attention grabber was Barack versus Hillary. That's why we all remember it that way. Because remember, at that time, Hillary was set to be the one, and Barack came out of nowhere and swooped in and took that shit. And Hillary was pissed. Oh, was she pissed. And then to turn around and come back and lose to Trump. Oh my God. Remember Hillary, see, this how it's crazy how people rewrite history. But you try to rewrite a history that we lived through. Remember, the night that they lost, that Hillary went in hiding for like a week. Because remember, the night that a president during the election, when they lose or have to concede, right? Remember, it took them at least a day to concede. They didn't concede the same night. They didn't concede the same night. And Hillary went into hiding for like 4 days. She didn't reach out to congratulate President Trump till like 4 days later. That shows you how fucked up she was about losing that shit. Oh my God, I'll never forget that. Because remember, they had They had her Democratic stronghold was at the Jacob Javits Center, because they were showing them on TV celebrating and dancing around, you know, and because remember that first they said she won, they was like, oh, she won, and they dancing around, we won, da 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 da, and they're like, oh wait, newsflash, breaking news.
I'm like, not so fast.
Yeah, they was like, hold on, whoa, and yeah, I'll never forget that, because motherfuckers was crying, having meltdowns. Oh, they were having meltdowns. Oh wait, can you still see the stream? Are you?
I just went back to it.
Hold on, I just want to show you something. I'm gonna show you what happened the night that Hillary lost. Hold on, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna show you. Which one was it? God damn it. I'm gonna pull. I gotta remember this shit, because I always use this as a reference, because it was so fucking true. Because I will never forget that night and the meltdowns people were having. And this was spot on. Hold on, here we go. Is this wait. No, that's a commercial. Hold on, let me pull it up. Every time I think of these nut job motherfuckers, I swear to God, I think of this moment right here. Because this was so spot on. Hold on, here we go.
What's the thing that scares you the most?
It is now official. Donald Trump is the next president of the United States.
Wait, that's not it. That's not the one I'm looking for. Yo, but when they hit, this was so spot on with this. Where is it? Maybe this is it.
We are going to make this decision now. The Fox News has called Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. This means that Donald Trump will be the 45th president of the United States, winning the most unreal, surreal election we have ever seen.
The revolution has begun.
Very close.
It's over. She hasn't won Pennsylvania by now. She's not coming back.
No, that's bullshit. I won't believe anything until I hear Rachel Maddow say it. She's the only one I trust.
This was in that night.
It's the politics of fear. It always works.
What started off as unlikely, impossible, is now reality. He said he was always a winner. This did not come without controversy.
Fuck you, world!
Entrepreneur.
USA!
Have now confirmed that Secretary Clinton has conceded to Donald Trump. This concession took place in a phone call.
It is my high honor to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
This is what they did that night.
USA!
So bad, you win?
Oh, go to hell, Huffington Post! Fuck you, Nate Silver! Oh my God, how can they have been so wrong about this?
You have to do your cookie breathing. You gotta do your cookie.
I can't do my cookie breathing.
Give me one deep breath.
No.
Oh my God, Ivy. Merrick Garland.
What's gonna happen with Merrick Garland?
You want to know who to get mad at for this? Our own state of Michigan. She's losing by 10,000 votes. That's the size of this town. He was at 40,000 votes and counting. Jill Stein.
Is that true?
Path to victory that was unlike anything we've ever seen. It did not come without controversy. It did not come without
This is
splitting
what
this country
happened, right?
in some of the most
And
divisive
it's
language.
funny how
It
people
does
in
come
the
now
selected.
at a
This
time where
is
history
definitely what
will
happened.
say this is the evidence.
I hope every one of those voters who decided it was a good time to cast a protest vote is happy when that psycho gets us all killed.
Honey, don't get so worked up.
Shut up, Marilyn. I told you to go vote, but you didn't listen. Now look what happened. Look at our friends on the couch and tell them that they might not be able to maintain their rights as a married couple because you were too busy today on Etsy to go vote!
Meltdown. Great meltdown.
It's hard to put it into words.
I don't want you to not be married anymore.
Oh, sweetheart. Sweetheart, come here.
Yeah, Kyle. I don't know if you can see all of that. But that was a clip from American Horror Story. And I think that was the what was that called? Cult? Yeah, that was the one from season 7, Cult. And it dealt with the election. And that was the opening scene of episode 1 from American Horror Story. But I always remember that scene because it was so true, especially watching the reaction footage from the Jacob Javits Center that night and the meltdowns that people were having. Like, and I think, honestly, if it happens again this time, we're going to double down on the meltdowns. Mark my words. The meltdowns, oh, I can only imagine how this is going to play out. But yeah, y'all, I'm going to get out of here. I want to say thank you to Miss C for rocking with us. You know, Miss C, you want to say anything on your way out?
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed watching the debate with you, and although we didn't get a showmanship one, we got a positive outcome in terms of hearing two men talk, two persons talk about the highest office in this country, and we see where we go from here.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. Well said. And can we tell everybody we look forward to we could be looking forward to having you back on? Is that a go?
Yes. Thank you for having me on your platform, and yes, I'd love to come back.
All right. We really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. So yeah, guys, you know, even on the rebroadcast, you know, if you can hit the like, hit the subs. Like I tell you all the time, I appreciate each and every one of y'all. This was a little bit different than what the norm is with the game streams, the fishing streams, the Warframe or Yu-Gi-Oh, even the Night on the Town, you know, live streams, karaoke and stuff like that. Sometimes we get serious. And for all of you guys, y'all have heard me talk about the show. You always hear me mention when the show gets started. This is a part of what the show is going to be. Like, we will be doing commentary. So get used to it because you will be seeing it more often. But it'll be multi-topics. It's not just going to be political shit. I got somebody coming in that we do movie talk. And I got somebody coming in that we do music talk, you know, hip-hop, rap, music talk. So if you go and look at some of the other episodes, you'll see that I even did an interview with one of my boys about his rap career and his journey as an independent artist. So it'll be blended, you know, but I do jump in this political space and have these conversations, especially when they're as important as what's going on right now. And like you heard at the end of the debate, they said we got what, Carol, 35 days left? It said 35 days until this shit is over. You know, whatever side you go for, win or lose, we'll know, and we'll be out of this or done with this part of it in 35 days. So, just take note. All right, so appreciate you guys. I'll catch up with y'all. Thank you for coming. You'll all appreciate it. And next time, man, hey, you guys don't be ashamed to donate to the channel, man. Listen, you see the ticker down there. You see the ticker. I know y'all can read. You see the ticker. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for alerts and how to become the moderator and sponsors to the channel. And how to donate. It's right there. And it's pinned to the top of the chat. Let's see where we're going to go with this. Let's see how we really, you guys really support the platform. But I'll catch up with you guys later. Carter out.